Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live webinar regarding the Queensland CTP Digital Innovation Journey. Hopefully this isn't the first time you're hearing from MACE regarding this initiative, but just in case it is, we will give you a bit of an overview of where we're going with our scheme and what we're hoping to achieve. So in today's session, if you do have any questions, please submit them via the chat function. I have some help with some other colleagues monitoring that chat function, and we'll either try and respond to you during the session, or we'll type a response, or we'll get back to you at a later date. Today, as I mentioned, we'll give you an overview of our journey so far in the Queensland CTP Digital Innovation. We'll provide an update on the eNOAC, our online CTP claim form. And then we'll introduce you to our new initiatives that we've published that are in production now, and that is the online medical certificate, the online treatment plans, online rehabilitation and reimbursement requests. And then finally, we'll talk to you about some further initiatives that we've got that will be coming in this space very soon. So jumping straight into it, our journey so far. Back in November 2019, the Motor Accident Insurance Commission held a forum where we invited many stakeholders from the CTP scheme, such as plaintiff and defendant lawyers, insurers, WorkCover Queensland representatives, and many other stakeholders as well. And during this forum, we discussed the claim process, and with a view to understanding where the pain points were and how digital innovation might solve some of those pain points. During that initial forum, we broke the claim process down into 5 sections: incident, lodging a claim, claims management, settlement and finalisation. And we considered all the aspects under each of those. And as I said, identified where the pain points were and came up with some initial ideas on how we could solve those. After that initial forum, the digital innovation team at MACE and our other partners commenced a 12-month journey in looking at how we can streamline this process using digital innovation. And the first thing we did was roll out the eNOAC, or the online claim form. So the online claim form first went live back in December 2020, which is around 9 months ago. And since that time, we have done many updates and enhancements to the claim form. So if you haven't seen it recently, I would definitely encourage you to go back and have another look, because it is always being changed and enhanced. And I think the features that we're adding to it on a weekly basis have made it even more functional to the user. We've had some really good results in terms of lodgements. So overall, in the last 9 months, we've had 186 claims come through as a digital claim form through our platform submitted to insurers. 152 of those have been submitted by direct claimants. So that tells us that direct claimants are definitely finding it more useful than perhaps the PDF version that's available on our website. 34 of the 186 have come from legal representatives, and we would certainly like to increase usage in that space if we can. But we'll talk about that a bit later in the presentation. So that's where we are with the online claim form. What we might do now is talk about one of our new initiatives, and that's the online medical certificate. So all along the way, the feedback that we've been given from different people in the industry has been that medical certificates can be problematic. It is very difficult for doctors to complete a medical certificate and get it back to a lawyer, and then the lawyer get a claim form submitted to the insurer within 30 days of first consulting a solicitor. There's often delays in obtaining that medical certificate. We also heard that medical certificates are often submitted and they're handwritten by doctors. And unfortunately, a lot of that handwriting is illegible. And that makes it very difficult for insurers to be able to screen that certificate for potential rehab needs. So we wanted to see what we could do in that space to improve that. There's also a problem that sometimes doctors don't fill in all the questions on the medical certificate, which means by the time the insurer gets it, the vital information that they need is not there and they have to non-comply the claim. The lawyer or the claimant then needs to go back to the GP and get that medical certificate amended. So that causes further delay. And this all has an impact on an injured person who is waiting for some rehab to be funded. So what we did was we went and explored the industry to find out ways that we could use digital technology to try and resolve some of these problems. We discovered an organisation called HealthLink. HealthLink are a software provider, and they provide GPs with software that they use to store their clinical notes and all their functionality. HealthLink have 80% of GPs in Queensland. They provide software to all 80% of those GPs. And so we partnered with HealthLink, and we've been able to get them to build our CTP medical certificate into their software. So the advantage of this is that when a GP is asked to complete an online medical certificate, they can simply go into their own software and they can complete the CTP medical certificate in that software, and it can actually pre-populate some information from their clinical notes over into that certificate. So what I might do is move to our platform and give you a live demonstration on where the CTP medical certificate lives and how we can complete it. So this is the Queensland CTP Claim Portal, and I'm just going to log into that. And this is the front page that we land on. So this is where you can go in to access your e-NOACs or to commence a new one. I'll click on one here. And as you can see, I've got one here pre-prepared that I did earlier, just so I could make it easier to show you where we're going. Okay, so because I've pre-filled in a lot of these pages, I can simply use this sidebar to skip to the page that I would like to show you. And that's page 6, where police reporting and medical certificates are available. So there's a question here that says, have you consulted a doctor or a hospital regarding your injuries for the accident? If you tick yes, you'll then see this next question, which says, do you have a CTP medical certificate completed by the treating doctor? If you say no, you'll then be prompted with this information here, which tells you that you're required to provide a CTP medical certificate with your claim, and that a doctor can complete that using this online medical certificate. And it gives you information on what you need to do. Essentially, the online claim form has generated a 6-digit code, and this code then needs to be provided to the GP when you visit them. There is functionality here where you can put your email address in here and press this button, and it will email this ID and instructions for the GP to you. So your client can take that to their appointment with their GP. The GP goes into their own system, finds the CTP medical certificate and enters this code. And then they just simply complete the medical certificate as it appears in their system, and then hits a submit button. Once the GP submits the medical certificate, the client will then receive an email which tells them that it has been completed, and it will be attached to their digital claim form. And so the claimant can then come back in here and go to page 14, and they will see the GP medical certificate has been uploaded at this point. Once that's been done, they can then proceed to submit the claim form. Now, there are, I guess, one major limitation in terms of the online medical certificate, and that is that it can only be used if somebody is using an online claim form. So, and the idea is that both documents will match together and then be submitted to the insurer all at once. Now, what we're hoping to achieve by this is that it happens in a much more timely manner. The information is being submitted in a secure platform, so it's not being transmitted by email, which is often not safe. And we're hoping it will happen more quickly, and it will also be typed and in structured data, so it's easier for the insurer to identify the injuries that the person has suffered and what treatment that they might need to have. So that is the online medical certificate. I might just stop presenting there and start presenting the presentation again. And we'll move on to talk about online treatment plans. So in terms of online treatment plans, in part of our exploration, we went to all the other regulators in Australia, and we met with them to try and understand what they had done in the digital space to help streamline their claims process. We did always have in the back of our mind that we wanted to do something regarding treatment plans, and one of the other states had actually introduced a digital treatment plan. And when we met with them, we took away some really interesting feedback from them. So what they told us was that of the treatment plans that were being submitted by providers to insurers in an online forum, the insurer was able to identify them much more quickly, and their response times were reduced dramatically. So they were even talking that response times to treatment plans were reduced to a 24-hour period. Now, we obviously can't guarantee that, but what we're hoping is that if we introduced an online treatment plan in our scheme, it would enable insurers to be able to identify those quicker. Again, they're in a structured way, much easier to understand, and that they would be able to respond quicker. And then your clients have access to the treatment that they need all that much sooner. We did also build this out in terms of helping the claimant to understand where the claim is at. So what we've done is enabled the claimant to log into the Queensland CTP claim portal, and they can click on the treatment plan button. And what that will do is enable them to type in their claim number and hit search, and it will then search for their treatment plan. And it will be able to tell them whether the treatment provider has submitted the treatment plan to the insurer or not. At the moment, that's all it can tell them. What we're hoping to do is build this out in the future and get some two-way communication happening in here so that a claimant might be able to see when an insurer has responded as well. So at the moment, it's just one way. The claimant can see when the treatment provider has submitted the treatment plan to the insurer, but future initiatives are looking to build that out. All right, next one is the online rehabilitation and reimbursement requests. So once again, we did a lot of research around rehabilitation. We heard loud and clear that this can often be a pain point in getting clients the rehab that they need in a timely manner. Now, as we know, insurers have a very short time frame of 10 days to respond to any rehab or rehabilitation requests. It's often difficult, however, for insurers to identify those requests when they first receive them. They might be buried in a letter that deals with some other information, and it's just not immediately obvious to them that they need to apply a shorter time frame on that workflow. So we wanted to look at a way of getting a rehab or reimbursement request to an insurer in a way that they can identify it straight away and apply those shorter time frames to get that response. Again, we have that issue of a lot of private and personal information being sent via unsecure channels, mainly being email. So particularly when it comes to rehab and reimbursement, there's a lot of documents going back and forth regarding regarding somebody's health and their medical records. So we need to ensure that that's going to get to the insurer in a safe manner and it is secure. We also heard from insurers that reimbursement requests can be really burdensome in terms of admin when they're processing them. And that's often because when they receive a reimbursement request, it might be just a bundle of receipts that they get in the mail. And they then need to go through those receipts, try and identify what they're actually for, whether that's reasonable and appropriate, and then putting together a response and a payment to go back to the claimant or the lawyer in regards to that. So once again, we applied our digital innovation to see what we could do to try and streamline this whole process and fix some of these pain points. So we've built an online rehabilitation and reimbursement request form that lives in the platform. Now I might stop sharing the presentation and go back to my platform now. Just bear with me a sec. So as you can see, I'm back here in the claim form. So I'll click home and I will click on this tab which says reimbursement and rehabilitation request. So at the moment I don't have any draft requests in here because I wanted to show you how to do it from the very beginning. We have put this little diagram down the bottom that does give you a high level view of what needs to happen, but I'll take you through it as well. So because I want to start a new one, I click on that tab and I come into here. So the first question is trying to figure out who is the person completing the form. So if I pretend that I'm a lawyer completing it on behalf of my client, I would tick this button up here. You can add a contributor to this. So if I was the lawyer and I did want my client to be able to add some information, I could add them here by putting their email address in. I then need to put my lawyer details in and my information. And then I would need to put a claim number in. This is just a dummy claim number. And I need to say which insurer I'm going to submit it to. I'll just pick nominal defendant. And then the name of the person. So we'll just say surname is Mary. Date of birth is essential. So let's just give her a date of birth. There we go. And this is where I need to pick whether it's going to be a rehab or reimbursement request. So I'll take you through rehab first. Click that button. And now it asks for the type of service. So if you click on it, you'll get a drop-down box and say, I would like to get some surgery funded. And then I just want to put in the name of the doctor, some contact details, and the estimated cost might be $10,000. And then there's an important question here that says, based on my client's instruction, I confirm that the rehab services requested are related to the motor vehicle accident. And that is a mandatory question, so as indicated by the red star. So I tick that. And here is where I can upload supporting documentation. So in this request, I'm asking for a surgery approval. So what I might do is upload the referral from my treating doctor. It might be a quote from the surgeon or a quote from the hospital as well. And then I can simply download a PDF copy of this for my own file, and then I can hit submit and it will be sent to the insurer. When the insurer receives that, they'll get an email notification that says there is a new rehabilitation request waiting for you in the platform. They will then log into the platform and be able to download this information. So they are notified almost in real time that this is there, and they know from the very beginning that it is a rehab request. The information is all there about what it is that the person's asking for, and hopefully the supporting document is attached as well. So that's a rehab request. I might hit go back up here and say I want to do a reimbursement request. So this is very similar, but obviously we're going to be asking for money to be paid back to the client for expenses they've already incurred. Again, you get the same drop-down box, which tells you what services it might be. So it might be, for instance, pharmaceutical. And then we want a date of the invoice, let's say, oops, yep, that'll do. And then we might say, description of the item, so it might be for some Lyrica. The provider's name is Dr. and phone number, and the cost of the item was $80. And then there's a question here, will this treatment be ongoing? Well, yes, I need to keep taking this medication for the next 12 months. And then if I have another one, I can click add another reimbursement request. So if I also had some physio that I had, you can simply go through and add all the details around that. And you can just keep adding other things. So essentially, if it was the same bundle of receipts that were given to you by your client, you could simply add all this information. We've also got the facility here to add the BSB and account number and account name, which will give that information to the insurer so they can make sure they can, once they've reviewed it, they've got the information to make the payment. And we've also got the same button here about, based on my client's instructions, I confirm that the rehab services requested are related to the motor vehicle accident. We can also then upload the receipts here as they come along. So the insurer gets all this information in a structured way. The beauty of it is once you hit submit, and the insurer gets it, they've got the ability to export it into an Excel spreadsheet. So that makes the admin burden has now gone, because all this information is given to them in a structured way, and they can see quite clearly each bit of reimbursement that the person is claiming for, and hopefully all of those receipts are attached. Now, the question is, yes, it's great. We're giving it to the insurer, we're doing all the work for them and putting it in this spreadsheet or this form. What's the benefit to us? Well, the benefit is that hopefully your client will get the money a lot quicker, because the insurer will have all the information at their fingertips that they would need to be able to make an informed decision and get that payment to your client. So that covers reimbursement requests and rehab requests. I might now stop sharing and present the PowerPoint presentation again, and we'll move on to our future initiatives. So the first one on the list is digital signatures on the e-NOAC. Now, we've heard loud and clear from the legal industry that the e-NOAC in its current form, which requires it still to be printed at the end and your client to wet sign it and a witness to wet sign it, and then it has to be uploaded back to the form before it can be submitted. The information that we've gotten back from the legal industry is that while that is still the case, most of them don't see an efficiency in using the e-NOAC rather than the PDF. So we've heard that. Initially, we always wanted to move to a digital signature. However, at the time we rolled it out back in December 2020, the legislation in place, and is still currently in place, says that if a document has to be witnessed by a certified witness, then it cannot be digitally signed. So that was a blocker for us at that time. We've now rolled out the e-NOAC, and we've got a separate piece of work where we're looking and exploring on ways of how we can institute a digital signature. Now, it is a fine balance of what we need to do. We obviously want to move to a fully digital process. However, we still need to provide a safe, secure environment for claimants to lodge claim forms, and we also need to ensure that we're not opening the scheme up to any fraud or any further claim farming problems. So it is a piece of work that is ongoing. We do have a process in place that we're looking at, and we're partnering with other federal government agencies to look at using an identity broker so we can securely identify somebody online. And we're exploring the possibilities of using that as a method of identifying someone rather than a certified witness. There will be more to come in relation to this. We have done some initial stakeholder engagements around the proposal that we're considering. We will be communicating with the industry about this in further detail down the track when we're a bit more closer to rolling something out. But I guess this is a really good opportunity for us to let you know that this is something that is on the radar, and we are working to try and solve that. Another initiative we are working on is in relation to police reporting. From the very beginning, we heard that police reporting can be often problematic for lawyers, for insurers, and for claimants. There's several different problems along the path. There are some police stations that won't take reports. There are some police stations that will take the report but won't give a QP number. There are other times that there is a QP number but there is unable to get a report from SciTech. There's other problems about getting reports from SciTech, but then they're heavily redacted. So there are a number of problems in this space. We are consulting with QPS, and we do have a number of options that we're working on to see what we can do to improve all of those pain points. And it is something that is very important to us, and we will be doing some further work in this space. And again, we'll be talking to the industry in the near future about that. We've already done some preliminary stakeholder engagement around some possible options, and our next step is to go back to QPS and see what further we can do in that space. Another initiative we have on the go is in relation to information exchange. So as you know, in the CTP scheme and the claim process, there is information going back and forth between many parties. There is disclosure obligations on insurers and lawyers, where any information that each party gathers should be disclosed to each other. And then there is actually the gathering of information that can be from other government agencies like Centrelink, Medicare, WorkCover, to name but a few. Then there's Queensland Health, there's GPs, there's employers, there's medico-legal doctors. There is a raft of information that's coming from different sources to both insurers and lawyers. And a lot of that information is being shared either through email or through secure file publishing methods. And some of the initial engagement we've done with both lawyers and insurers is that there is a lot of platforms out there at the moment that can allow secure file publishing, but they can be problematic in that everybody wants to use a different one, and each one requires a password, and it's very heavy in an admin burden to be able to use all these different platforms. So what we're looking at doing is expanding the CTP claim portal to possibly allow for that secure information exchange to happen within our portal, and perhaps starting with two-way communication. So that initiative will probably start with some API integration with insurers. So this is where insurers' systems can speak directly to our Queensland CTP claim portal and extract information. Once we've got that going, then that can happen the other way as well, where an insurer can potentially report information back to our portal, which will be available to lawyers, medical providers, things like that. So we're calling that two-way communication and information exchange. So again, there's a lot of work yet to be done in this space. It's early days, but something important that we wanted everybody to know that we are working on. And then finally, at the other end of the process is clearances. So again, we hear that that can be a pain point because we all know that claims run for quite some time. They're long tail claims, and you finally get to a settlement, and then there's the whole finalisation process where clearances need to be gained from different government agencies. So we're starting to look at Centrelink clearances. We've engaged with Services Australia, and we're exploring a way of using digital technology to communicate through our platform or through insurers to enable the whole processes of clearances to be done in a much more streamlined manner. So again, we're engaging with Centrelink and Services Australia. They're going to be our prototype. That's who's we're going to try and build with first, and then hopefully build off of that with other agencies. But it is definitely something to keep an eye on. So all of these things, there's a lot of work going on. I spoke with a GP recently in relation to getting some feedback, and she termed a phrase which I told her at the time I would steal. And she said, you know, you're doing this at exactly the right time. People's minds are opening up to digital technology because of the COVID pandemic that we find ourselves in. And her motto is never waste a good disaster. So that's my plan, and our team's plan is not to waste this disaster and make sure that we can move forward in a way that we think the world is going. So we're hoping to take you along the journey with us. So that's it for today. If you do have any questions, you can submit them directly to our email, but I've just noticed that a question's come through from Jacqueline. Let me read the question out. As the ENOIC requires an account to be created, if the person who has created the account and commenced an ENOIC as an employee of a law firm leaves that employment, oh, it just disappeared. Sorry,
I've done the published now.
Under published.
There's
quite a few questions here. Sorry, let me go back to the very beginning. All right, Barry Ross asks, does the rehabilitation reimbursement request assume that the insurer has accepted liability? Well, like anything else, there's no guarantee that the insurer will approve a request coming through this platform. The same rules apply with lodging a reimbursement request or a rehab request as it would through the platform as it normally would. An insurer is only obliged to fund rehabilitation reasonable and appropriate once liability has been admitted or when they make an early rehab decision. So assuming that they have accepted rehab prior to admitting liability, then they will give appropriate consideration to any rehab or reimbursement request being submitted either through the platform or through normal methods. And sorry, Jacqueline, I'll get back to your question. So it's about an employee of a law firm starting an ENOAC and then they leave. Can that account be transferred to another party, or is there a way to create an account for a firm as opposed to an individual? Now, Jacqueline, this is a really good question, because another initiative that we do have on the go is a new security model. So at the moment, if a person, each individual in a law firm is required to create their own account, and if they've started an online claim form and they leave, we would suggest that you contact us and we may be able to do something to give somebody else access to that draft form. However, moving forward with our new security model that we're looking at building, we are looking at giving super user access to certain employees of law firms. So they will then be able to give access to whoever they like in their law firm, and also take that access away. And that will also allow anybody within that law firm to access any draft ENOACs at any time. It's not limited to the individual person. I hope that answers your question. Another question here. Given you're engaging with Centrelink, is there a possibility to engage with Medicare in the future? They are the major delay at the moment. And yes, that is something that we have heard as well. I think when we first started this process back in November 2019, it was Centrelink that was the problem. We've heard recently that it seems to be Medicare. Now, Centrelink and Medicare are both now Services Australia, and we are actually engaging with Services Australia as a whole. They have said to us that they would prefer to work with Centrelink first, and then once we have a solution for Centrelink, we can then look at Medicare. So Medicare is not off the table. It's just probably not the first rung that we're going to deal with at the moment. And then we've got a question from Trent Johnson. Can the format be expanded to populate Centrelink, PBS and Medicare authorities using the info from the ENOAC? That's a really, really interesting suggestion. So I do understand that those are specific authorities that need to be signed by the claimant, and they're usually done at the start of the claim. So that is potentially something we could look at. It's a great suggestion, Trent. It's not something that we had considered, but we'll definitely put it on the table. Thank you. I think that is all the other questions that we have at the moment. So thank you very much for your time. As I said, you can submit any other questions via email to our Innovate email address that's displaying on the screen at the moment. I do want to thank you for your time, and just a last plug if I can, don't forget to go back in and have a look at the ENOAC. If you haven't seen it for a while, it probably has changed. We are improving it all the time. There are weekly updates, and by all means, the insurers are ready and waiting to receive your online rehab and reimbursement requests as well. So it'll be great to see numbers driving up from the legal industry, and we hope to keep listening to your feedback and improving things as we go along. Thank you all very much for your time.